What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Conquer Athlete podcast. We are the dynamic duo today. Tyler Cook has decided to bail once again, so it's Jason and I bringing you this week's fitness hotness, we'll call it. We're going to go real influencer this week.
Yeah, Tyler got stuck at Home Depot.
I don't know, man. Good for him. He's trying to do big things over there at 1124. I respect the grind. He should probably hire someone else to do it and just focus on training. I'll just say that.
You heard it here first. Guys, Conquer the Podcast, the leading podcast in the fitness industry.
And potentially bullshit during the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can we bullshit about today?
Dude, I don't even know. I don't even know what's happening inside of the world. This is a couple weeks old, but last I heard, CrossFit was getting sold. Everybody was losing their minds. And then that totally went dead silent. Pretty sure it got debunked. So honestly, I feel like it's pretty quiet in the streets right now.
It is.
WFP's over, so the drama with that is over.
What do we think about that? Do we still want to talk about that?
WFP? No, dude, I haven't wanted to talk about WFP since the beginning of it. I'm not here for it. No, dude, I think we should just stay the core. We can't figure out what we're doing in the biggest event of the sport. So why are we trying to expand out of it? I don't think it's any better for the athletes. I would argue that it's probably hurt more athletes, maybe not physically, but from a schedule standpoint than anything.
Yeah, they just released a new schedule.
Yeah.
The opens, cross opens are live now.
I know. Yeah. What's the prediction? It's sad to say it, but I think it's going to be worse than last year.
Disagree.
Do you?
I think it's going to be pumped up. I think they're doing one thing correctly. I think the thing they're doing correctly is that they're leaning into CrossFit being challenging and hard and not for everybody.
Yeah, but is it actually reaching anybody other than the people that already care about it?
And I think those are the people that were going to do the open.
Yeah, but I would argue that those numbers are down.
Put a friendly wager on this.
Okay. What does this wager look like?
Oh, man. I don't know. We could be something like really stupid. Like I'll send you a Starbucks gift card or something. Do you drink Starbucks or you Dunkin' Donuts?
No, bro. Starbucks? No. Sorry. I don't condone the Starbucks business practices. Yeah, well, we'll leave it at that. Yeah.
How about this? If you win, you take me on a Conquer Hunt excursion.
Bro, I was just thinking about this. I just thought about this yesterday that, we were talking about Misogis yesterday, right? And I started listening to that book recommendation you gave me, and I was like, dude, I wonder if Jay would consider this a Misogi. Like, I don't know how far outside your comfort zone that is.
Very much so. I hate the cold. I don't like hunting.
Perfect. We should set this up.
Yeah. No, it's like, and it's not like I don't like hunting because I'm not like, my dad was a huge hunter. Like I'd grow up with, deer carcasses hanging from my front yard, right? Coming home from school. So, and he and I aren't that close. So I don't know if it's like some weird, like internal connection to that, right? Of him, like, the idea of like him chugging down bud heavies, hunting in the woods all day long on the weekend, every weekend. I don't know if it's connected to that or, yes. The idea of Misogi. Guys, Comfort Crisis. It's a book I'm reading. And it really I was talking to Ryan the other day, and the Conquer Hunt program really locks in like that to me. It's about reaching a higher level of self, a higher level of your internal understanding, survival, resilience by doing something that's extremely challenging. Now, the key to it though is it can't be like, so-and-so did this, so I'm going to do this. Like it has to be 100% related to you. So it's not about chasing a score or chasing that. And it's not like an Instagram post. It's like, Australians going on fucking walkabouts. And if they come back alive, then they're allowed back in the tribe type thing, right? And you obviously don't go on a walkabout and get killed, but It's doing something that's so far out of your comfort zone that there's a 50% fail rate is the premise, right?
Hmm.
And like you come back and like you just got by it. You just were able to do it if you make it back, right? And you will have moments where you want to fail and you can't talk about it because if you talk about it and you tell people and you post about it, then it turns into like you having to prove to people where it's the premise is you just proving to yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, to be clear, one of the core tenets or rules is don't die.
Yeah,
So
you
it
can't
can't
have a
be so
challenge where you're gonna
crazy.
die. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But going hunting in the woods like that would be so far out of my fucking comfort zone.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. I'm here
Like
for that.
do you know what you should do? Which would be pretty badass. I don't know.
I think
We have
you
to have a
and
lot of.
Tyler need to come because I know that's outside Tyler's comfort zone.
We have to have like. What if we set up through the Conquer Hunt program once a year, Misogi trips?
Yeah, I think it'd be
Like
great.
that could be pretty fucking badass. You know, whether it's like where fucking I don't know. I don't even know like
You
where my
can't even
brain would
talk
go
about
with
it. You
this.
just have,
You can't even.
you literally just have to show up because the idea is minimal preparation.
Yeah, minimal preparation. Like
Like
it's
you're
not
not
something you can
training
train
for
around.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like people sign up, but you don't tell them until, you like buy a plane ticket for here.
Yeah.
Right. And then they show up and like, here we go.
And then it's actually just a battle royale. I feel like that would be
Speaking
the
of that,
ultimate.
that wouldn't be out of my comfort zone though.
Well, yeah, you're facilitating.
Okay. Yeah. I just boxed. I got punched in the face for like an hour.
That's fun.
Fun. A lot of fun. A lot
Yeah,
of
that's
fun.
definitely fun. Yeah, I mean, dude, like I love the idea of the Misogi, and this is actually gonna. I think this is a great segue into what I ultimately want to talk about today. But even the idea of just Conquer throwing something up and be like whether it's monthly or you and your men's group and it doesn't even get posted. Like I was thinking of like how could you do this on a grand scale without kind of like taking away from the premise of it and be like, hey, we're going to do this thing once a month or like whatever it is. If you want to do it, you have to email us for the task. And then part of it
I
is just like just going and doing it. Like there's no social media involved. You can't post it. You just got to do it. We don't even want to know how you did. We don't share any of the results. You just got to go do it.
I really like the idea of the Conquer Hunt Misogi trip.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be tight. That'd be
Do you
tight.
know, like I really like that idea.
Yeah. That'd be
Like,
fun.
there'd be a lot to that, obviously, with legal and medical.
Bro, sign a waiver.
Sideways, those uphold. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about that, right? Like, so the topic today, which I think ties into this really well is, you know, from an experience standpoint, what lessons have we learned from year one of coaching to like year 10 and beyond? Because I look back at what we're talking about, and I would do something like that in year one with a totally different reason, just because I want to like watch people suffer, and like the early days of the sport, we would just program these like savage workouts just because we want it to be hard, with no real underlying reason to it other than it just being hard or outside of somebody's comfort zone. And that's not to say that the Misogi isn't that, but at least now I have an understanding of how it could be beneficial to someone on a much grander scale.
Yeah. I mean, it's a deep question. Like coaching lessons, year one versus year 10. So if I try to put this in reference, right? Year one for me was 2008, right? So year 10 was 2018. And then we go out another 8 years, right? Now we have 2026, which is where we are now.
No, no, no. That's incorrect.
Is it?
2008 to 2026 is definitely not 8 years.
No. I said 10 years was 2018, and then
Okay,
2018 to
got it,
2026.
got it.
So like, what was I doing year one? Man, year one was like 2000 pure raw, no condom CrossFit. You know, it was like my pull-up bars were welded to the wall by some bro that had a fucking welding machine, right? It was scraping whatever equipment we could together. At that point, if you had 60 members, that was a productive gym, right? It was pure love of fitness because nobody was like, hey, I'm gonna have a gym with 300, 400 members. It was like, yo, you got 80 members in your gym? That's crazy, right? Like when we first started out, it was pure community. Like, man, I had everybody come through my gym. John Wellborn, Bergener, McKenzie, who else had Rob Wolf? They were all through my gym. Coaching, talking about things, the Rolodex that you were able to create in the CrossFit community back in 2008 was insane. Like you just like, Castro and Glassman and Tony Budding and whoever, Nicole Carroll and Freddie Camacho. We were all just like people like in this like underground like fitness revolution, you know, you know, and that was fun. That was a lot of fun back then. It was just drinking a lot of beers on a Friday night and waking up and working your ass off doing .com on a Saturday morning, right?
Yeah.
And throwing your score up on the leaderboard on CrossFit.com and going from there. And I think as a coach, it was a lot of rah-rah of Kool-Aid drinking, you know, not by fault, by excitement, right? Like, a lot of people were in it, ex-athletes who were able to find that competitive love again, or people who never experienced competition finally competition and understanding the value of that, right? With pushing themselves and, doing stuff that you never had exposure to and now have exposure to all this. And it was a faucet hose I was talking about this with actually Mike Nelson yesterday. When CrossFit first came on the scene, it was a fucking people drinking through a hose to get information, right? It's like seminars and learning and education exploded
Hmm.
across the world because all these people who now found fitness and enjoyment in fitness, because it wasn't like, hey, chest and tries, back and buys at a global gym. It was friends and pushing yourself to limits that you didn't know you could push, and having a competitive environment that you might not have had in a while, or this is the first time you've ever had. And you just want to learn more. You want to learn more and do more and dive into more stuff. And, Ripito came through my facility for a couple of days, and that was great. And so as a coach in year one, it was just a lot of quote unquote Bible reciting, right? Like whatever was said was Bible,
Hmm.
from these people.
Yeah.
And you followed that blindly a lot. And a lot of people did. Tell you that if they tell you they didn't, they're fucking lying, because we all did, right? And we all were experimenting and driving the concept of intensity to its limits in every single thing that you did. And it was kind of, and a lot of it too was this bravado of CrossFit, which almost tied into Misogi back then. Cause I remember being like, the most I ever ran in my life was like fucking, 400s. And I was like, oh, I'll go do a 50K trail run. I'm a CrossFitter. I can handle that shit.
Yeah.
And I went off and did a 50K fucking trail run, right? And it took me forever, and I couldn't walk for a week after that because I had no preparation or training or understood anything about fueling. I literally threw on my BSC compression fucking pants and showed up at the starting line to run a 50K trail run. My God, back then it was like whatever. It's like if a challenge was put out, hey, Saturday night we're drinking beers. There's a 10K or a half marathon tomorrow. You think you could do it? Yeah, let's go fucking do it. We're CrossFitters. We'll do anything. Show up and go run a half fucking marathon, right? And that was fun. Like there's lots of challenges that you put yourselves through just for that bravado of being a CrossFitter in year one. And you kind of push other people to do it, challenge other people to do it, and you would sort of push to the side fatigue management and stress and adaptation. It was just pure stress, right? And pure work. And it was like survival of the fittest almost. And a lot of experimentation too, because the community was so small and so tight that, Castro would send like Bergeron and myself and Hobart and Maliola and all these dudes eat workouts that he was thinking about or playing with, and we'd all do them, or Rob Orlando and Sin Martinez and Dave Lipson and all these motherfuckers would just show up at a gym and throw down whatever Castro told us to do, right? It was
Mhm.
like, it was awesome, right? And we kind of pass that along to our communities. And year one was a lot of community. I mean, it was like, those are like your boys, you'd party with your gym members, you'd go out at night with your gym members, you would invite your gym members to your house. It was this insane underground revolution, and everybody part of it was automatically family, right? And that was kind of like the feel of year one for me, CrossFit back in 2008. Honestly, is like, if you weren't there, I feel bad for everybody that wasn't there, because it
For
was
sure.
it was one of the greatest times in fitness, in my opinion, ever. Because the amount of, like, if you look at the journal, the CrossFit Journal, if you guys don't know what that is, when Greg Glassman first started, it was like weekly. This dude would write, I don't know if it was weekly or monthly, but it was a lot. And he would just write in journals, and it would be like anywhere from, I don't know, like about 15 pages, sometimes longer. But everybody was in it. Mark Twight from Jim Jones, John Berardi, Precision Nutrition, was talking about intermittent fasting in it. Like Dan John, everybody was in the CrossFit Journal back in the day. Like the dudes, the amount of brain and power that came in across in the beginning was absurd.
Mhm.
And if Greg knew how to harness that and not let his ego drive him, like, who knows where shit could have gone, right? But it was a complete revolution, and it completely saved weightlifting. It completely saved fucking gymnastics. It completely saved endurance. Well, not really endurance sports, powerlifting.
Yeah.
People are going to tell you, no, it didn't. You're fucking lying, because you'd have nobody at a seminar, and now you have 30 people every weekend at a fucking powerlifting seminar, right? Or a weightlifting seminar. And 50, 60% of registrants in the USA weightlifting comps are CrossFitters, right? It's
Mhm.
like, think about that, and then it was in gymnastics. Dave Durante said all the time, like, it saved gymnastics. He put rings in people's hands for the first time ever, and more kids into gymnastic sports. And it was insane. Like, that was year one. And that community feel, man, I remember, like, then Reebok came on board, and, that was nuts, because Reebok came on board and they were trying to, like, get everybody connected. And Reebok was in the Northeast. So it was like myself, I was a spot. They sponsored like 70 people, right? And I was one of them. And we had this shirt, and our names are on it. And that was the first time I met Rich Froning. And we went down to to Miami to run a seminar. It's like Andy Stumpf, Gilson. It was Hennigan, who owned Rogue, Froning, myself, Guido. A bunch of people were down there. Reebok rented out Club Live, and they fucking had Diddy perform. So we're sitting there at
What?
Club Live, and it's completely rented out with just CrossFitters and Reebok execs. And, I'm sitting up there with Rich and Hillary, and I'm with my wife, Joss, and Swiss Beats comes out, and he starts fucking performing. And I'm like, what the I'm like, Swiss Beats? I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus. So I'm getting pumped up. Then all of a sudden, you hear, dan, 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 and all of a sudden, Diddy comes out and just starts performing. And I was like, what? And you got to figure this was like 2000, I don't even know, 10 or 12. It was crazy, man. Like, that CrossFit time was insane, because everybody was in it together. Everybody was trying to push everybody. The community aspect from here to anywhere. Like, you walked around and someone had a pair of Nanos on, or not even Nanos, because the Reebok wasn't even there yet in 2008. Someone had like a CrossFit t-shirt on, because if you did
Yeah.
CrossFit, you wore a CrossFit t-shirt. And someone had a CrossFit t-shirt on, it's like, there's a head nod and you guys are automatic friends, and that was year one. Nothing could top year one for me, being at the infancy of CrossFit.
All I heard was Diddy Party.
Baby oil everywhere. I don't even know. I'm like, why is there baby oil at Club Live? What are you supposed to do with this?
Just pallets
Yeah.
full of baby oil. Yeah.
Oh my God. I remember, dude, they went out of hand. They got out of control with some shit. I remember at one games, this is at Carson, and they brought out Tyga. Do you know the rapper Tyga?
Yeah.
Tyga? Yeah. They brought him out to perform at the games, and they had these girls from the stands come down and start dancing. And then there's a meme, and it was like CrossFit, the only organization that can empower women and degrade them at the same
All
time,
at the same
right?
time.
Yeah, all at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds about right. When did
Yeah.
when you like started in 2008, how long was it till Milford opened? Okay, so it opened
Yeah.
right then
So
and there, and
so
you
I started
affiliated in 28.
I started as like a hit gym, personal training,
Got it.
boxing, and then you know, someone showed me CrossFit in like 2007. I think I've told this story. I don't know if
Yeah.
I told it on this podcast. You know, it was like fucking shoulder press, push, jerk, right? And I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever, right? Because I'm thinking the normal training that I learned in
Mhm.
college. And then they're like, all right, just try this workout with me. It's like G.I. Jane, 100 burpee pull-ups a time. And I'm like, well, this just fucking destroyed my life, right?
Yeah.
And then like 3 weeks later, they were like, hey, there's a seminar in Virginia. Because that was when they were only doing one seminar a month.
Mhm.
They got up to like 15, I think, at one point. It was like one seminar a month. I was like, so we all hopped in a car and went down there. And at that seminar, it was me, it was Bergeron's, it was Gilson, Rudy. I don't know if you guys remember Rudy. He was
Yeah.
Outlaw. He was there. Tanya Wagner. You know, there was like all these East Coast OGs that were there. And Glassman was teaching. He was there. Nicole Carroll, like they're all kind of like, you know, so we were fortunate enough to hear the seminar from the horse's mouth, right? Which was
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, so I came back 2008 and just turned it over to CrossFit Milford.
Nice. When so I mean that obviously like we'll call it the golden years. I mean, that lasted
A long time.
a significant amount of time. And I remember you saying at one point you linked up with Fitz, right? James Fitzgerald, and he kind of encouraged you to take another direction.
So yeah, you know, it wasn't really like encouragement. He was just like, because James was huge in CrossFit.
Yeah.
You know, for the people that don't know, and he was all over on the message board. You know, he won the first CrossFit Games, and he was balls deep at CrossFit.
His
He
Helen
loved it.
video is still
Yeah,
one of the greatest CrossFit videos out there, I think.
yeah, he loved it. He was the first one to bring methods into CrossFit.
Yeah.
You know, energy system work,
Yeah.
and I don't think he had the proper strength systems in the beginning, and that was a knock. But he was thinking about it from a bigger perspective.
Mhm.
And then obviously just continued to escalate with how smart that guy is. And if you guys don't really know James, and most of you guys probably don't, because he's someone that's like, you know, you get so smart that you just kind of detach from everything else and
Yeah.
everyone else, right? It's kind of like the path he took. One of the smartest minds out there for strength and conditioning. He, so I was like, man, this is like bringing back everything I learned in college and relating it to this sport. So then I started doing his summit. Well, it was first at Black Box. So the Black Box Summit is when like some shit hit the fan between CrossFit and Greg Everett, right? At Catalyst. Do you remember this story?
Yeah.
Which was stupid because all Greg, and this was the issue with CrossFit, was that if you knocked anything that they did, you were automatically like a target on your back.
Yeah.
So all Greg said was you can't teach Olympic lifts with PVC pipes. And that right there, like fired up Glassman and Castro. So they were at the Black Box Summit, which I was supposed to go to, but I didn't because I was coaching a level 1 seminar and a bunch of my buddies went down there. And you guys don't know Greg Everett, like he's a bad motherfucker. Like he's a big dude. He's strong. Like he's not going to back down. And he was talking about weightlifting, and the Black Box Summit was all about different methodologies for CrossFit. Like that was the first seminar thing held at Jeremy Thiel's box, was like, hey, how can we approach different ways to think about training for CrossFit? And, you know, you had Greg Everett and you had, I forgot, and you had a couple of people there, and James Fitzgerald was there, and all these people were there talking about it. And it kind of fired Greg and Castro up because it was like, well, they're like, well, this isn't CrossFit. But yes, it was CrossFit. It was just the evolution, different ways to go about it. That's all it was. And Everett put up a picture of Nicole Carroll doing a med ball clean, doing a clean with the med ball. And all he said was like, you can't teach a clean this way. So right away, Castro gets, I forgot his name. He was a ranger. He worked a lot with CrossFit, but he was kind of like I always call him like the pit bull. Like he was the one that always like bark, you know, and he barked from the stands at Greg. Greg fired back, you know, so it was kind of like weird, right? But it's kind of the role and the culture of CrossFit, because then they went outside to fight. Castro and Greg and these other dudes, they went outside to brawl. It's like, what are we doing? We're supposed, like, this is a revolution of fitness. And that was like the first kind of like explosion. My buddy calls me up and he's like, bro, they're about to fight. I'm like, what the fuck is going on down there? Right. And then I called up James Fitzgerald like that week. I'm like, hey, like I'm really interested in hearing like what you're talking about more and how to train for CrossFit. And he's like, well, funny you should say that because I think I'm going to start doing my own seminars. And that's kind of like how his seminar started. I was like, all right. So I linked up with that when it first started, which is cool. And that was like CJ Martin and myself, a couple other OGs from like the Canada area and others around here. And then Maxwell Hodge got in there in the second round. And then, so going through that, I was just like, hey, this seems like that way of training, which isn't his way. It was just the application of principles towards a mixed modal sport that just connected with me a lot. So I went back to Castro and I was like, hey, like, I'm thinking about doing my own seminars. He's like, that's fine. He goes, we're all for it. Like, Dave, I love Dave. We have a great friendship. But he was like, hey, but it's just a conflict of interest. He's like, he's like, no worries if you do it. He's like, we just can't stay on CrossFit and do this and you do that. I was like, oh, I get it. So that's when I started doing my own seminars.
So like, what did you learn that prompted you to not stepping away from the method is not the correct thing to say, but you obviously thought you brought something unique, something different that was worthwhile to share in your, version of a seminar. Like, what was that? What did that evolution look like, having done and taught the method for so many years?
So I always like doing things my way, and for me, it was training for CrossFit, but looking at it from a different lens. So not looking at it from the lens of variability, not looking at it from the lens of focusing on that 7 to 10 minute intensity zone, and how they structure the programming between the weightlifting, gymnastics, and monostructural in the days, but more so looking at it at a lens from the system in the body and the different energy systems and how to maximize that around the individual. Then it dove deeper from there into, well, okay, we're thinking about this from an energy system perspective with mixed modal sports. It's the same for strength, as we all know, right? It's a simple conversation, but it's the application of strength training and powerlifting and weightlifting and hypertrophy work, but the proper blending of it. And how to mesh it like an orchestra in a way that's conducted to have everything work together and flow together, which to me is one of the most challenging programs in the world is CrossFit, right? Because it's just that you have to be able to bring all these different pieces together that require something a little bit different and create something a little bit different and get it to flow for a person in a way that can drive them to where they want to go, depending on who they are, right? So my path just started going from like that 2008 path of, variability.com, whatever said, into, well, how can we think about this from a bigger lens where we take the principles and the methodologies and ideologies of the various individual modalities and then blending them together with blended periodization models in a way that allows the person to continually improve and enhance and grow without a degradation in performance through overtraining or too much work, because there's so much that has to be involved, and then so that was kind of like that year 10 moment. And I think my twist on it between CrossFit and James, because I was sort of like in the middle, was the fact that I still loved CrossFit and I wasn't trying to like bash it. It was like, well, how can I take this and now look at it from my own lens of what I know and how I can do it to keep getting people closer to where I want to get them, right? So that was kind of like probably like that year 10 marker.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for the people that have experienced, James and what he put together and his kind of evolution within the industry, and obviously I'm not speaking for him, just my own firsthand experience was, him participating in the sport, him creating his own method that I think if you go back and follow the breadcrumbs of probably the most of the successful coaches in the sport probably went through it in some fashion.
Yep.
And then kind of, I would argue, evolved out of it and started focusing more on longevity, and his conversations were more around longevity. And that could have been
Longevity.
his own, sort of personal evolution, and then ended up kind of totally leaving the sport, ended up kind of selling that part of the company. And, you've kind of stayed true to, or not stayed true, but you've kind of held fast in a blend of both, where, you're in a place that longevity matters, right? And like your own training, and like you want to feel good, you don't want to hurt and stuff like that. You still want to get after it. You're still focused on performance, and, like fall, or at least being part of that and watching that evolution. It's interesting to see the principles that I think you've really molded around the mixed modal format, right? Because everything we talk about in the mentorship, the periodization, the structuring of training for different qualities, all of those things are readily available. Like you
Yeah.
can go
Yeah.
YouTube most of that shit.
ChatGPT, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what isn't there is how you structure it in a mixed format. Right. And I think that's what you realistically have done better than anyone in bringing that to the light and teaching people that and explaining that. Was that a lot of trial and error, or was that just practicing, call it singular principles from other sports, and then being like, hey, that worked really well. How could I bring that into my ecosystem?
A little bit of everything, Ryan, because I remember like I first dove in to it, right? And like I read so many books,
Yeah.
but I read the books almost at the wrong time because they didn't have any guidance of it, right? And so I'm reading all these books and nothing, it's the nuggets that I needed to know weren't really settling in yet. And it's almost like as I continued to experiment with it, because I even still feel back then, like I look back at it now and it was new, and it was new to James because things that I was told and taught weren't correct. It was still an experimentation with it, right? And I remember writing programs and having people do things based off how I was educated on it. And looking back now and be like, God damn, like I was fucking killing people, right? Like killing them.
Yeah.
But it was still at a better clip than the alternative. And the alternative being no plan, like no progression.
Just
And
pure variability.
yeah. And with
Yeah.
the continued growth mindset of continue trying to like be like, okay, like I got to keep peeling back the onion. I got to keep peeling back the onion and reading and researching and doing and thinking and like being, well, over like the last 6-8 weeks, like what the fuck's been going on? I would continually just kind of peel back more onion, more pieces of the onion and be able to break it down more and more and more over the years. Even still now, it's like I might have a chat with somebody who might be like an expert in, let's say, like pure aerobic training,
Mm-hmm.
right? And have a talk with them. And I'm like, yeah, that makes total fucking sense to do it that way to build that based off that. It's sort of like it's connecting the dots, right? I feel like we at different stages. And I think this to me might be the biggest impact as coaches progress. It's in your first years, it's just like acquiring information, right? And it's like dots. You're just acquiring fucking dots. There's no rhyme or reason. They're just dots fucking everywhere, right? And then it's like, then you progress through the years. If you allow yourself to have a growth mindset and you keep progressing, then all of a sudden it's like you start creating these pathways, right? From one dot to the next. You're like, okay, yeah. And then as you keep progressing, because you have all these dots and all these landmarks for information, and you're starting to connect some like strings and connection points between them, is that you continue to connect the dots all around where you are to where now it becomes so, what once started out as like so segmented, you're like, fuck, I don't even know where to go with all this shit. And it's like, okay, I can go here. And then as you keep progressing, you keep learning, you keep refining. Now it's like the puzzle's together, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, now I can fucking boom, ba boom, ba bop. And everything's kind of connected with pathways and roadmaps in your head over the years. And to me, I feel like that's sort of like how the progression runs for coaches, because then it's like as these dots start to connect more, and I look at it like if you look at like a crime TV show, right? And they have like, the leaders up top and you have all these fucking strings connecting
Yeah.
everywhere as they start connecting shit more. It's like, that's kind of like how it is. And then all of a sudden you look back at this puzzle and you see all the connections, and then you're like, oh, and this is how it applies for this person. This is how I can get this person to understand it. Right. And then it's like this bigger light bulb flashes, because now it comes back to what you were talking about on the mentorship call yesterday of like coaching the individual. So now, like, fuck, okay, now I see the person, I know the person, I understand the person, and now I can connect the dots with what method to apply for this person, right? And to me, I always see like that's that evolution of a coach throughout the years, if they allow themselves to get there. You know, some people do and some people don't. And the coaches who I had this talk with, two people over the past 2 weeks, like Mike Nelson, who I gotta email you. He's down to do a talk for our mentees on a special topic. So him and Bo Sandoval, who was one of the head strength coach at Texas A&M. Now he's in the academic department for them. He just started up a master's program. And
Well, there's something I want to touch on
yeah,
that you're talking about, right? Like you're talking about all this education skill or education absorption, right? In like the early years. And I think this is really important for, aspiring coaches to really understand is we all started in what I'll call monomodality, right? Like I think it's really important to learn a sport in its purest form, right? Where there isn't a ton of interference. That's what makes our sport so challenging is fatigue interference, right? And like you're jumbling all these things together, trying to balance it throughout a day, throughout a week, throughout a month, all these things to prime your person. When you don't understand a sport in its most simplistic form, not that programming for those things isn't challenging, but you rarely have outside interference, right? Like if their
yeah,
lifestyle is good, all that other shit, right? So when you learn it in a monomodality format, it's easier to understand the fatigue that's involved in it, right? And
right,
like when
totally,
you understand that, it makes it easier to start to blend these things together. And you start looking at, recovery curves, like kind of nothing is absolute. I think that's one thing I want to say. Like in year 10 of coaching, you realize nothing is an absolute. It doesn't matter what's written in a fucking textbook. Nothing is universal for any athlete. And, but you do kind of come up with some common trends of like, cool, if I'm hitting real high percentage back squats and this person has like a real high and I'm blasting them, they're going to need like 48 to 72 hours to allow that system to recover, right? So I know after I hit that, maybe for the next couple of days, I need to take things relatively chill, right? To allow that recovery curve to adapt. And, we're not going to get deep into that, but understanding kind of those universal premises of if I apply X, this is what I could potentially see on the backside, and I need to account for that inside of the program, right? From a fatigue management standpoint. And then you start looking at things. All right, well, am I doing my strength training in the AM and then, some aerobic work in the PM, or am I flipping that? Am I doing a mixed modal piece and then hitting, a heavy snatch after that? Okay, well, why am I doing that if that doesn't realistically make
hmm,
sense from a exercise selection hierarchy, like um, from a traditional principle standpoint, but knowing that, okay, that's the sport. Like we realistically could see that. And you start playing with these things. But if you don't understand that in its most simplistic form, how do you ever get to that understanding?
right,
And so like,
100%.
we had somebody in the mentorship ask for pictures of our books, and I was going through my bookshelf and just kind of like looking at these things, and it's the majority of it is all singular, right? Like it's Catalyst, it's like Arnold's book on like hypertrophy, or like aerobic, some sort of training on like ultra marathons, these like very singular focused sport things. And then you take the principles and you reshuffle them, and you're like, okay, how do these things apply to the sport?
Right. You know, I remember too what they were saying, and it goes along with what you were just talking about. The most important and most impactful thing a coach can have is a growth mindset. The
Yeah.
ability to not stay comfortable with where they are and what they know. And because if you don't have that, then the more you're going to continually search for understanding of what you do, you know? And it's not about like, and for some of us too, we don't need to search to be the know-it-all of every single thing out there, because that's fucking impossible. But keep searching and to have a deeper understanding and connection of what you do know. And then from there, you might pick one thing a year that you try to dive into more, and consult with people and go down those rabbit holes. But the more you do that, the more you'll be able to connect your own dots.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, and even to my point of, learning things from a monomodality standpoint, you also have to understand, like using weightlifting as an example, right? Like how, the best teach the lifts. Obviously, there's variance between coaches, but for the most part, there's some principles within just weightlifting. Like this is how we teach it, this is how we progress it, this is how we build someone.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, you're doing one lift at a time. How does that doesn't I mean, that translates to part of the sport. You may see that in the sport, or you may see, sets of 20 to 30,
Yeah,
of a super light barbell, right? Which is like totally outside of their world. So you also have to be able to not be so rigid in your learning, reading, and understanding of things, to be like, all right, well, the sport is different. There is carryover, but you have to be a aware enough critical thinker to be like, no, this doesn't make sense. And I need to think outside the box to get this athlete to perform,
totally.
you know? So,
Absolutely. Love it.
yeah. So, I mean, wrap it all up in a bow for people, year 1 to year 10. Like if your year 10 could talk to your year 1, like what does that conversation look like?
I think you answered that. If I were to look back and talk to myself at a younger version, I would say focus on how to train each modality singularly better.
Mm,
Because I think that's what you need. If you're trying to be a pitcher and you try to have 10 pitches, you never focus on one of them, you're gonna suck. None of them are gonna be really good, right? But I think if you focus on each modality and you truly understand it and you understand how to develop it and progress it, and then you move on to the next one, you're gonna have an easier time of connecting your own dots for the niche that you want to work with.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was gonna say explore more, spend more
Yeah,
time doing singular modality things like yourself, and actually feel what it feels like, feel what the progression feels like, feel what the fatigue feels like, and you'll have a much easier time connecting the dots.
yeah, and I think that's an issue where I'm not saying you need to be a gymnast to coach gymnastics, but if you've never done it, you have to be able to understand fatigue and where that can settle in. Like you just have to do things. You have to explore it. You have to do things. You have to have exposure to things.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to express anything at an elite level. I would argue
Right.
just doing going through a foundation, to your example, a foundational progression of gymnastics would be wildly beneficial to understand the positions, understand, the joint and mobility requirements of,
Totally.
what you're going to see in the sport. You'll get so much more out of that than any form of variability.
Totally. Like I did that for a long time. I would have Dave Durante and Colin Garrity write me gymnastics programming, pure gymnastics programming,
Yeah.
just to feel it because I never had exposure to it ever. Okay, so let me see what my body feels like with holds and hangs and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, then you actually realize how hard it is. Like you
Yeah.
see what those guys are doing, and you may be doing something at a significantly lower level, or like a regression, and you're like, holy shit. Like this is what I'm feeling, and like I'm nowhere near where those guys are at,
Right.
you know? So
Dope.
yeah, that's great. So, guys, go explore more. Go spend more time in the books, spend more time asking questions. There's a wealth of information to be had out there. And, if you spend more time watching, reflecting, and asking good questions, you'll advance in the sport way faster.
Absolutely.
So cool. Go check out the Coach RX podcast. That's it for today. Candace will be very pleased. Until next week.
Until next week.